I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different, and every breakup is different. Work with me, and you'll get professional help on your situation. Just click on the link in the description below, or go to my website, askcraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
Hi there, I'm Coach Margaret.
And today we're going to be talking about mental health conditions made easy.
Yes, because oftentimes we hear from people that they or someone else has been diagnosed with something or other.
It's a lot more common than you would think,
yes,
and it may be going on and you don't have any understanding of it. So you have to really understand that mental health is a huge component of a relationship.
Yes, it is.
If you're not mentally healthy or your partner is not, the ability to maintain that relationship over the long term is going to really diminish.
Yeah.
Okay? You're going to struggle, and you have to understand your partner and your needs in order to make it work.
That's right. And if you're certainly if you're thinking about a life with someone, any mental illness issues that you yourself have or that they have are necessary pieces of conversation if you're going to live with each other.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have to know what you're getting into.
Yes, you do, or it won't work.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because if you think you're getting into this great situation, but the person is borderline or bipolar, or has major issues with depression or trauma, it's going to come out.
Yes, it is.
And if you don't prepare yourself for it, you're going to have all of these expectations that are really unrealistic,
yes,
and it will just cause you to be angry and frustrated and disappointed.
And you're going to be angry that you didn't know about it.
Yeah.
So these things can be handled, but not if we don't talk about them.
So we're going to try and make it a little bit easier for you to understand.
I'm going to try to make it simple. That's my job, to make the complicated simple. Okay. There are two major mental illnesses. Now, by major mental illnesses, we mean things that have dramatic symptoms and are due to a chemical imbalance in your brain.
Okay, and what are those two things?
There are two. There is schizophrenia, which I'm sure most people have heard of, and that's a thought disorder. You can't get your thoughts together in a way that makes sense, and you know it, and it's terribly disturbing. And oftentimes you have visual or auditory hallucinations. You can often hear voices. Usually they're not nice voices. They're telling you what's wrong with you.
Yes.
But you can hear all kinds of voices. I've heard people who heard music in the background when they were having an episode of schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is the disease that all the big mental hospitals were built to serve. And we have almost gotten rid of all of them because we don't need them anymore, because the medication for schizophrenia has become so good and so sophisticated.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that some people don't still have the horrible end of the spectrum, but for the most part, we have gotten rid of it.
Yeah.
And people can be maintained outpatient as long as they will take their medication. The trick with either of the two major mental illnesses is staying with the medication.
Now, Margaret, what are your thoughts on schizophrenia? Do you think it's because something traumatic happened to somebody, or is it biological, or is it both?
The current state of, actually, I think both schizophrenia and bipolar disorder have a trauma component, but I can't prove that. But many people who've been in the field as long as I have, 35 years, think that there is at least a connection between the two.
I can only think of one person that I've known that was schizophrenic, and I know that she had major trauma and was abused sexually when she was little.
Yeah.
And I saw her in a schizophrenic episode, and it was one of the most bizarre, surreal conversations I've ever had in my life, where she had just come out of jail, and she was telling me about jail.
Oh, yes.
Did I tell you?
Yes, I remember this case.
And she just said the craziest thing to me, and it was interesting because she was very normal at first.
Yeah.
She was like, how are you? It's good to see you. How is your son? This is years ago. And then she starts saying, I said, well, it's nice to see you too. How are things? Have you been doing okay? And she said, well, yeah, I was in jail. And she starts telling me all these crazy stories about how Batman was there, and Batman was arguing with her, and Batman, and that this girl was there, and the girl got mad at her because she threw a shoe at her, and then she was like talking about, well, why did you throw the shoe? Oh, because you farted on me, and you know, you can't just do that because you're not the president. And if you're not, you're not the mayor, and you're not the president, you can't just do that. And
you don't think this makes sense.
Yeah, and the way she was, it was completely like, in her mind, it was all real. Yeah. Batman was really there and stopping this crime, and people were farting on each other.
And that's why I say it's a thought disorder. Your thoughts don't make any sense, and oftentimes your perceptions don't make any sense.
Yeah, I felt so bad seeing her like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
The joke has always been, you know, you see pink elephants. But people often hear all kinds of things. And one of the things that happens in schizophrenia is many people become paranoid. So as far as I'm concerned, paranoia is always a very serious symptom. I've heard all kinds of stories about, I'm an informant for the FBI, and I'm keeping my eye on you. But you probably think you're an informant too. So
we're watching each other.
Yeah.
And we're both on the clock. So paranoia
is often a major feature. And then you hear all the stories about people who are getting messages on the radio. If you haven't heard this before, it really, really does happen. You can turn on the radio and hear the news and go, oh my God, the CIA is giving me messages through the radio, right? Howard Stern is talking to me.
At least he's funny.
Yes, but people, unfortunately, can often believe this. And when they tell you this, they're not trying to make something up or to fool you, but this is how crazy their thinking has deteriorated to be. I was told very seriously by somebody one time that he was getting messages, you have to be ready for this one, through the fillings of his teeth. And he was getting them from the oil tankers off the coast of Massachusetts.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense.
Well, only until you send Batman.
Batman will stop it.
So schizophrenia was a really dreadful condition. And people can make sense for a certain amount of time, and then you realize that, you know, they're really not making any sense at all. And people really can't either care for themselves or protect themselves when they're in this state. We came up with some old-fashioned medications that began to get us on the road to taking care of this disease. One was called Thorazine, one was called Stelazine. There are several others. But the Thorazine in particular had such horrible side effects. It was wonderful when we were able to not use it so much. It would stiffen people's muscles, and people would find it hard to move around. And people used to say, so-and-so is doing the Thorazine shuffle, meaning that they had had to take this drug for so long, it had majorly impaired their ability to move.
Wow.
And for their, and even now, when I worked inpatient in the hospital, you could see the responsible psychiatrist was still checking people's muscles. I mean, they'd stand up and move their arms around to be sure that they weren't being badly disfigured by this stuff.
Wow.
And the other drug that was common was Stelazine. And if you try to give somebody who's paranoid medication, they get really scared that if they take the medication, they won't be alert enough to be able to defend themselves. And apparently Stelazine worked better for the paranoid people. They still felt like they were alert enough to be able to protect themselves.
Sure, and that would make me think, well, this person had serious trauma or abuse,
yes.
And that's why they're scared to defend themselves.
Very likely. Rarely do these things occur in isolation, but you're probably not going to run into too many schizophrenics today, but they are among us. I worked with a woman once who functioned just fine, she was prone to schizophrenic episodes every few years, and she took medication all of the time, and she had stopped having the episodes.
Yeah.
But this was a high-functioning person.
Mm-hmm.
But all those old, awful, there's an old movie called The Snake Pit of what it was like for the people who would be locked up for years with the schizophrenic disorders. So fortunately, we don't need these huge hospitals anymore. And people who have schizophrenia right now, there's a handful that will always need to be in the hospital. But most of the time, it can be managed outpatient. And the trouble with treating either of the major mental illnesses, and I'm going to get to bipolar in a minute, is that people stop taking their medication.
Yes.
But we discovered a medication where people could get a shot once a month and be fine. And then there wasn't the constant argument about, did you take your medication, or did the voices tell you not to, so they could have a better day, or what happened here. So it's called, what is it called? I forget at the moment, but Haldol. Haldol. You could come in and get your once-a-week shot. And I would work at a mental health clinic outpatient too, and you'd see the whole Haldol crowd.
Is it once a week or once a month?
Once a month.
Okay, you just said once a week.
I didn't mean to say that. It's once a month.
Okay.
And then you'd be okay with your medication. So schizophrenia, we've really done a good job in dealing with.
Yeah.
Okay?
Now, if you're dating somebody that's schizophrenic, I mean, what does the research
And
show
you could be.
about
And you could be.
having children with them?
Well, bipolar, which is what I'm going to talk about next, runs often in families. I don't think it's quite as pronounced with schizophrenia. And, you know, many times it happens. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with whose mothers were schizophrenic and who would get out of the hospital every once in a while, which is how they got pregnant and had the baby. And then they'd be available sometimes and not others, and that was tragic.
Yeah.
These kids would get kicked around to various relatives and so forth and so on.
Sure.
But I mean, if you're dealing with someone who has, say, schizophrenic episodes or is a little paranoid sometimes, as long as they're in outpatient treatment and doing what they need to do, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
But you'd certainly need to understand that and agree upon how you were going to handle it. And but it wouldn't have to be the end of the world. Now, bipolar disorder, which is quite popular these days, we hear a lot about bipolar disorder.
Yeah, it's a lot more common than schizophrenia.
Yes, it is. And we don't know exactly why that is. Some people say we don't eat enough iodine. Honestly, I've heard that. And so they'll put more fish in a diet and so forth and so on. But it certainly doesn't cure it. So schizophrenia is a thought disorder. Get your thoughts together. Bipolar is a mood disorder where your moods change rapidly and dramatically, and your moods become rapid and dramatic. Now, bipolar, we've talked about this before, but it never hurts to repeat. Bipolar is like the North Pole and the South Pole. The North Pole would be equivalent to the manic end, where you're excited and wild and everything can be wonderful and swell. And if you do anything bad, you're not going to get caught. That's the sort of happy manic end, okay, the North Pole. The South Pole would be the absolute depths of depression, right, where you can't get out of bed, you can't move, you don't want to live anymore, you don't want to take your next breath, all right? So you have these wild mood swings, and then there are all kinds of variations in between. One specifier is with rapid cycling. Now, if you get into schizophrenia with rapid cycling, chances are either you're an adolescent or you're not taking all your medication. And rapid cycling can be dealt with now by adjustments in medication, okay? But neither schizophrenia nor bipolar can be treated without medication. I get calls from people saying, I have bipolar disorder, can I come and see you? Are you taking your meds? No, I want to do it without medication. You cannot. You just cannot. Therapy is helpful either to schizophrenics or to bipolar folks, but you have to take your medication. And it's extremely difficult to deal with bipolar people, and the most common thing you hear is that they have angry outbursts episodically that make perfect sense to them, but you have no idea why they're having this absolutely incredibly angry episode. And if you've ever seen a manic person in an angry episode, you know you don't want to be around that a lot. people with bipolar disorder are famously irritable. Like, you're getting on my nerves, you're breathing too loudly. And anything annoys them. There's an ant over there and it's stamping hard on the floor and I can hear it. Any little thing will cause you to go off. So the manic state, it looks happy in the beginning, but it really isn't. There's an anger behind it always. But people in bipolar states do all kind of crazy things. People spend money that they don't have. They get into crazy business ventures that they shouldn't. Somebody was telling me the other day about her husband who invested a whole lot in vending machines. We've all heard that scam, okay? And you couldn't tell him, no matter how logical and brilliant you were, that it wasn't going to work and make him lots of money. People go to the racetrack in a manic state, being absolutely sure they'll win. People commit crimes in a manic state, and they never think they'll be caught because they're on this wonderful, grandiose high where they're wonderful, they can't make any mistakes, everything is wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah. So the prisons are full of people who committed sometimes major crimes, but often petty crimes in a manic state. And I remember one guy telling me, I told them I was too beautiful to lock up, but they did it anyway. He was rather charming, actually. But once you get the right bipolar medication for somebody, it's almost a miraculous change.
The problem is keeping them on it.
The problem is keeping them on it. And one of the problems is that the same combination of medication does not work for everyone. And you really need a skilled psychiatrist who's willing to work with you to get the right combination. And I know wonderful psychiatrists who will do that. And I'll hear people, I haven't taken my medication, why not? Well, it didn't agree with me and it made me feel bad and this and that. Well, have you been back to the doctor? No. And I try to tell people in the beginning, you may have to go back several times. You're going to have to work hard together to get this one correct. And I have one model citizen who has never gotten off her medication, and when something is off, she immediately calls her doctor and goes to see her. And since she has several other conditions, this is a wonderful thing, that at least we haven't had to worry about the bipolar. Okay? So that's major mental illnesses: schizophrenia, bipolar, thought disorder, mood disorder. Okay?
Okay.
All right. And paranoid symptoms come under the schizophrenia. All right. Last weekend I happened to be talking with someone who I had just met and decided they'd get a free consultation, who told me that one time a psychiatrist said her mother had some schizophrenia and some bipolar disorder, and that can happen too. It's called schizoaffective disorder, and it's very treatable. Okay?
So explain what schizoaffective is.
Schizoaffective means you have some of the symptoms of a thought disorder and some of the symptoms of a mood disorder.
You got it all, baby.
You got it all, baby, is exactly right.
Oh, man.
But that's treatable too. But it is true. You can have a mix. All right?
As if one wasn't rough enough.
As if one wasn't bad enough, okay? All right, so these things require medication. There are many other conditions called personality disorders. There are two famous ones. Anybody know the most famous one?
I would say narcissism is probably the most famous.
But almost as famous is borderline personality disorder. And many times we get questions.
We'll have to do more videos on narcissism and borderline.
I'm going to do another one on narcissism soon. But with borderline, one of the questions you get is that I looked this up on the computer and I can't figure out if my partner has borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they can look a whole lot alike.
Are we going to do...
The next category of things we will talk about is personality disorders, and borderline conditions and narcissistic conditions come under that. Okay? So we did the major mental illnesses today, and it's not that personality disorders are exactly minor, but they don't have the overwhelming effects of the first two. Okay? And we'll give you some instructions on how to tell one from the other.
Yeah. We're obviously going to do more videos your mental health and the different diagnoses to help educate you guys.
Yep.
We realize that not everybody's going to deal with these issues, but for those of you that are and are going through a breakup and trying to understand your partner or yourself, this kind of information can be really helpful for you.
Yes, it can.
Right?
Yes.
So,
and for your partner who may or may not understand what's troubling you.
Yeah. So we'll come back to these things in the future, but it's good that you understand the major disorder of thought disorder versus mood disorder.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have both.
Right.
Which, man, I feel for those people, life is hard enough with one, but to have two.
Yeah. The thing is, the mood disorder responds much better to medication. So if you're going to have any of these situations, schizophrenia is the least responsive to medication. But bipolar and schizoaffective are more responsive to medication.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So hopefully you guys found this helpful.
Yep.
And if you have any particular questions about mental health, write it in the comment section.
Sure.
You know, we'll look through it.
We'll be happy to
and we'll
address it.
You know, make sure we address it in further videos. But if you have questions about a particular mental health issue, ask us. Put it in the comment section. And be sure you subscribe to the channel. I always forget to ask you guys to do that. But subscribe to the channel. And of course, when you need our help personally, you can just go to my website, AskCraig.net. Sign up for the coaching option that works best for you. I do email coaching, I do Skype coaching, and if you got to get with me right away, I do offer emergency Skype coaching. Margaret also does Skype coaching now.
And I'm getting a good response, and I thank you all for signing up and invite you to do so more.
Yeah, so just click on Margaret at the top of my webpage and sign up on her page right there, because it'll say Margaret, okay? You can either do coaching with me or Margaret. We're on separate pages on the website. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And we will talk with you soon.
Hi, I'm Coach Margaret, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist with 35 years experience. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. If you would like professional help with your situation, please contact us at AskCraig.net.